Midnight. No warning sirens, no explosions, just a sound so enormous that survivors later struggled to describe it. A wall of water, nearly 20 feet high and stretching for miles, was racing through China's Henan province, swallowing entire villages before anyone even knew a dam had failed. But this wasn't the failure of one dam. It was the beginning of a mathematical chain reaction. Within hours, another dam failed, then another, then another. By sunrise, 62 dams had disappeared from the map. The terrifying question wasn't why one structure collapsed. It was how one failure became 62. To understand that answer, we have to travel back 2 decades, to a time when engineers believed they had finally conquered one of China's most dangerous rivers. During the 1950s, China launched one of the largest hydraulic engineering programs in its history. Rivers that had flooded for centuries would finally be controlled. Reservoirs would generate electricity, irrigate farmland, and protect millions of people from disaster. Standing at the center of that vision was Banqiao Dam, an enormous earth-filled structure built across the Huai River. At first glance, it looked almost indestructible. Unlike a concrete dam, Banqiao relied on a gigantic clay core sealed inside layers of compacted earth and rock. The immense weight of the structure pressed inward on itself, creating a barrier designed to resist extraordinary water pressure. Engineers believed it could survive what they called a 1,000-year flood. It became a symbol of confidence, perhaps even certainty. But hidden inside every engineering marvel is a list of assumptions, and Banqiao's greatest assumption lay behind a surprisingly ordinary piece of hardware. Its spillway relied on relatively narrow sluice gates to release excess water. Under normal floods, they worked, but rivers don't only carry water. They carry branches, trees, mud, crops, and entire sections of hillside. Every branch that became lodged reduced the dam's ability to breathe. Every blockage quietly stole away its safety margin. At the time, no one imagined that this seemingly minor vulnerability would become the first piece in one of history's deadliest engineering domino effects. In August 1975, Typhoon Nina moved inland from the Pacific. Normally, storms weaken rapidly after leaving warm ocean water. Nina didn't. Instead, the storm collided with an advancing cold front. Meteorologists describe this as atmospheric blocking. In simple terms, the weather system became trapped. Rather than moving forward, the storm stalled directly above the Huai River Basin, pouring rain onto the same mountains hour after hour. 24 hours passed. The rain continued. Another day. Still no movement. Some weather stations recorded more than an entire year's rainfall in less than a single day. Hillsides collapsed. Rivers disappeared beneath torrents. Valleys transformed into temporary lakes. Inside Banqiao's control rooms, engineers watched reservoir levels rise faster than any design calculations had predicted. Gates opened. More gates opened. Water surged through every available outlet. But the inflow was increasing faster than the outflow. Then debris arrived. Entire trees slammed into the sluice gates. Thick mats of vegetation tangled around steel structures. The escape routes for the reservoir began choking shut. The reservoir kept rising. Engineers desperately transmitted requests downstream. Reservoirs needed emergency releases. Communities needed warnings. Reinforcements were urgently required. But nature severed the conversation. Mudslides ripped through telephone poles and telegraph roots. Communications vanished. Banqiao became an island of engineers surrounded by rising water, completely alone. Shortly after midnight, the numbers stopped mattering. Physics had taken over. The pressure inside the reservoir had become immense. Saturated earth began losing its internal strength. Tiny seepages became channels. Channels became torrents. Then the dam failed. Millions of tons of water exploded through the opening with unimaginable force. The escaping water accelerated downhill, converting stored gravitational energy into raw kinetic energy. Within moments, it became a flood wave traveling at nearly 30 miles per hour. Houses disappeared instantly. Roads ceased to exist. Entire forests folded flat beneath the advancing surge. But Banqiao wasn't the final destination. It was merely the first domino. Smaller reservoirs waited below. Each had been engineered for ordinary floods, not for the complete contents of an upstream dam arriving all at once. The first downstream dam absorbed the impact, briefly. Then it failed. Its collapse merged with Banqiao's flood, creating an even larger wave. That larger wave struck the next dam. It failed too. Each collapse multiplied the destructive power flowing downstream. Every new reservoir added its stored water to the advancing wall, increasing both its volume and momentum. Engineers call this a cascading failure. One system fails. That failure overloads another, which overloads another, until the entire network collapses faster than anyone can intervene. Before the day ended, 62 dams had been erased across the basin. It wasn't 62 independent disasters. It was one enormous equation solving itself downstream. When the water finally slowed, it left behind a landscape almost impossible to recognize. Roads vanished beneath vast inland lakes. Railways ended underwater. Entire communities simply disappeared beneath newly created seas, stretching across thousands of square kilometers. Rescue became almost impossible. Bridges no longer existed. Communications had already failed. Entire regions remained isolated for days. Yet outside China, very little of this was known. For years, much of the disaster remained hidden behind government secrecy. Reports were restricted. International attention was minimal. One of history's greatest engineering failures quietly disappeared from public memory. Only decades later did the full-scale emerge. Not just the immense human tragedy, but the extraordinary engineering lesson hidden beneath it. Banqiao wasn't destroyed by a single storm. It was destroyed by a chain of assumptions. A storm stronger than expected. Spillways that clogged. Communications that vanished. Dams that depended on one another more than anyone realized. Every disaster begins long before the final collapse. Sometimes it begins with a design compromise. Sometimes with weather. Sometimes with a mathematical possibility that no one believes will ever happen. And when engineering underestimates physics, nature doesn't negotiate. It simply balances the equation.